Hello, traveler. It's another day, night, evening, twilight. Time is really not really the point of the journey at this stage, as we find ourselves transitioning through potentially different planes, going in between different realms of reality, different lights in the tunnels, connecting from one place to another, trying to figure out how to make that spark go from one campfire to the next. Luckily, I'm no pyrotag and I'm no magician. I'm just some ordinary dude named Tall. But I do have someone here who has, in my opinion, the glow of the will-o'-the-wisp radiating through their color. And they have been able to join us today to start today with a few wonderful affirmations before we dive into this wonderful reading.
Hello, traveler. Just a few words before we dive into an exploration. I wrote this poem about a month ago, and I hope it resonates with you the way that it resonates with me. Just breathe. Through your nose, out through your mouth. Soak in the moment, these feelings of doubt. Just breathe. Don't miss these feelings of disdain. Just breathe. You know things can be good. You felt it before. This is only a temporary display of neural pathways finding their place. Just breathe. Know that you are okay.
Oh, hi, Sam.
Hi, Saul. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing? Thank you for the
I'm
wonderful words
good.
this morning.
Oh my gosh, thank you for allowing me to have a place to read them.
As always, as I can always relate, how often it comes back down to breath work. As someone who goes through their own self-created anxiety spikes through their own being a dumb person in this reality, let me tell you how important coming back to that breath work can be, to be like, okay, this is something that's happening. How do I deal with this? So I really, really appreciate with some of the freshness that I've gone through in life that affirmation myself. So thank you very much. But I'm
Oh,
excited to get into this Book of the Dead here with you.
oh, me too. Oh my goodness. So we are starting today off with the generation of an altruistic intention. Now, before I dove into this, because I kind of read ahead a little bit, I didn't know exactly what that meant. And it led me to learn about something called the Dharma Friendship Foundation that's actually out here in Seattle. And I went on like a whole rabbit hole, of course, like
Okay.
of diving into this and like who's there. But from my understanding, it's like a construction of the levels of like, getting to a bodhisattva, which I thought was really cool and very fascinating. There's another term in here that I'm not sure we touched on or clarified, but it's the term greater vehicle. That word tends to pop up throughout the Tibetan Book of the Dead very frequently. And when we refer to the greater vehicle, as we read this aloud, it is actually a reference to the human body. We are known as the greater vehicle of the soul, right? So the generation of an altruistic intention. In little parentheses before we dive in, it says, then the altruistic intention of the greater vehicle should be generated in the following way. Even though all phenomena are empty and selfless, sentient beings fail to realize this. Alas, how needing of compassion are they? So that all those who are the focus of our compassion may attain enlightenment. I must rouse my body, speech, and mind to the practice of virtue for the benefit of all sentient beings of the 6 classes, from now until enlightenment is attained. Not just for my own sake, but for the benefit of all. I must generate the mind aspiring to supreme enlightenment. How needing of compassion are those bereft of the sacred teaching, who have ensnared themselves within the unfathomable ocean of suffering, so that all those who are the focus of our compassion may be established in happiness. I must generate the mind, aspiring to supreme enlightenment. I myself and all infinite sentient beings are primordially of the nature of Buddhahood, so that we may all become supreme embodiments who know this to be so. I must generate the mind, aspiring to supreme enlightenment. The ocean of mundane cyclic existence is like an illusion. All compounded things lack permanence. Their essence is empty and selfless. But these naive beings right here, who do not realize this to be so, roam through cyclic existence, driven on by the 12 links of dependent origination, so that all beings gripped in this quagmire of name and form may attain Buddhahood. I must rouse my body, speech, and mind to the practice of virtue.
Okay, so I get just actually, I know that's not what we intended to do, but I just wanted to let you read all the way through because I just wanted to perceive it all as is on that first part right there. And I have thoughts.
Oh, yeah. I'm excited to hear your thoughts. Okay,
So,
lay them on me.
so first and foremost, well, actually, no, I'm curious. So this is something that's meant to be read aloud. What did you feel when you were reading it? I guess is my first question.
Vastly different from when I was reading it to myself.
Okay.
When I was reading it to myself, it was just me sitting here at my table and just kind of doing more of like the scholarly intention, right? Of trying to making sure that I have an understanding of the words and the phrases. But reading it aloud, it feels more powerful and a little more like overwhelming, but in a positive light. I think we saw this trend. We've seen this trend of compassion throughout the Tibetan Book of the Dead, and to hear it again and to learn about or to read out loud about how the needing of compassion are those bereft of like the sacred teachings, or like I must generate the mind to supreme enlightenment, and not just for my own sake, but for the benefit of all. It's not just about me and you. It's about everybody. It's about what we can teach others. And for me, what I really took out of that is compassion.
Mm-hmm.
What about
No,
you? How
I
did
think
you
that.
feel hearing it?
Um. So first and foremost, I understand vehicles in the different schools of Buddhism. Um, so like it's interesting for me, like vehicles, like I didn't know that in this context a greater vehicle meant like straight up body, and that makes a lot more intention to me. Like so like reading it like with that understanding of it like is like, oh, okay, so I understand like why it's kind of where as I'll get into some of what I might jot it down here. um like so like there's the different vehicles would be like the diamond vehicle and stuff like that, which would be like I don't remember what they are, but I know one of them's like the Tibetan school of Buddhism. Then there's Mahaba, I'm butchering how to say it. And then there's Theravada, which are the different like three majors, like Roman, or it'd be like Catholic versus Protestant, right? The different schools, and those are like different vehicles of like ways to attain enlightenment, and it's talked about in different sutras and stuff like that. So like to hear like you said, they're different like ways of like the whatever that the essence is to be able of the Buddha nature to get to that point. And so like to talk about it in the human body as the vehicle, like well, yes, of course, stuff, right? It's the tool, it's the vehicle, right? So and it's just basically a flashback to my Buddhism 101 class, right? That I literally took it, in my religious 101 class.
Yeah.
So like to be able to then hear this, the generation of altruistic intention, first and foremost, to me means what is the one intention we're supposed to have? In at least in my understanding of Buddhism, realistically, it's not even the compassion. It's not only just the compassion of others and outwards, but like the one intention we're supposed to have for ourselves is to attain enlightenment, right? That's the
Right.
one desire we're supposed to seek. It actually is. It's not sex. It's not food. It's not drugs. It's not rock and roll, baby. It's enlightenment, right? It's not having those, in the Jedi way, not having attachments and stuff like that. So like the generation of that altruistic, so like that intention outside of yourself. So not only is it just the intention of being compassionate, but like that, what is the most compassionate thing of being enlightened and reaching your enlightenment and the enlightenment of all beings, right? um I don't know. I have a lot to go in the ways with that. Did anything initially come up from that random stream of consciousness for you?
Yeah, but I totally like lost because I didn't highlight it like a goofball. Give me one moment. Okay, yeah. So there's this line right here that says, "From now until enlightenment is attained," and that absolutely speaks to what you were saying. You know, how our like as our intention would be to seek enlightenment, right? And so it's I feel like this is just like giving words to a person on how they are able to live life, whether it's through compassion or through like love or through, you know, whatever of the six classes that, you're going through and you're experiencing. But it's from now, from the moment that you begin your journey until you reach enlightenment. And I think that's really very, very powerful on how connected it is with. It's not just a, oh, if you spend this amount of time, doing this amount of like prayer or learning or meditation, then you can start the point of like you reaching your enlightenment. It's like from the very beginning, right? Like for you and I, it would be like the moment we accept that we're on the spiritual journey. As we read this, that is our moment of start before we reach enlightenment. I think that's really cool that all of this is just so tied in to the process. And again, the Tibetan Book of the Dead is all about the process in which, Guru will assist the recently deceased, right, through their death, but it's also the journey for that like guru as they reach the point of enlightenment that they do yearn to reach. Does that make sense? I feel like I kind of like went a couple different routes.
Yeah, no, I think you touched on a few things there, and I think that's reflected in that initial, the initial actual prayer, right?
Mhm.
Even though the phenomena are empty and selfless, like right, so they have no form and they have that ability to that Buddhahood, right? It's
Mhm.
just that aimlessness, or not aimlessness, that well, like it says, emptiness and selflessness. I guess I don't know. I still haven't figured out the right way to translate those out of my head.
Yeah,
Um,
I kind of feel the same way.
Yeah, because it's not empty. Empty is not the English word that we associate with empty is not what that word empty that I'm reading in front of me means. It means literally that ability to be anything, that agency and potential to
Yeah,
be, the water and vase, quote unquote. But it's not that, right? It's just
right. It's like
I don't.
a like maybe it's like a clear page, right? And it's free of I don't know, like it's a fresh start.
It's a free expression, right? It's a
Yeah,
free
free
expression. It's
expression.
the
Yeah.
closest I've. It's that queer expression in whatever it is, right?
Mhm.
Um, and then sentient beings fail to realize this. Everyone, all of us, still who are trudging along unenlightened, right? And how in needing of compassion again are they? In that need of that intention of enlightenment, right? To be that empty and selflessness, or selfless. Sorry, I should say not selflessness, but selfless. Um, so that those who are focused on our compassion may attain enlightenment, again, that wish to for that, what is that intention, right? The generation of the intention of enlightenment right there. So this, I think, really, like, I'm starting to understand, I think, a little bit more of how these are like generally formatted. So like
Mhm.
it's that initial like, oh, here you go, here, right? For those who need to be helped, for those who need to be healed, for those who need to be enlightened, come here, the good word, right? As I would hear in the friar days, right? And everything like that. I know it's not, again, poor metaphor like that, but that's kind of how my body's like, or my mind's reading it as, right?
Yeah.
um and it's really talking about, like, yeah, I think the last point that I really resonated with you right there is how it's all of those beings are on this path, right? And it's from now until enlightenment is attained, as you draw to right there. And it's for the benefit of all sentient beings, and of all six classes, right? So it doesn't matter if
Yeah.
you're in the depths of hell, if it doesn't matter if you're in whatever divine realm, if it doesn't matter if you're a hungry ghost, it don't matter. It's for your benefit, right? We're trying to reach enlightenment for all beings, and not just ourselves,
Mhm.
not just some king, not just some queen, not just some elite rich person, not just some wonderful mother making food for their daughter, um, um, but all beings, right? And so
Yeah.
it's that community, right? And it's that, and how, and again, how is this being intended? And it is by these people who, um, how is this being attained? You were talking about this, the sage, the the tutor, right? And it says right
Right.
there, it's from those who are enlightened. It doesn't say necessarily a sage. It doesn't say necessarily a Buddha. It just for so that those who are focused on compassion on our compassions, right? So those who are working at trying to be a better person, those people working to all that stuff. And I really like that element of it, right? It's that like I love that because it's my little anarchist, right? It's like anyone who's just trying to
Right.
be like, hey, well, these are the people who are trying to help these communities and stuff like that, right?
Yes. And kind of on that, how you had brought up how it's not only just for like you or I or like a king or a queen, but it extends to the 6 levels and or the 6 classes, and it's like no matter where you are. And if you recall earlier, in one of the prayers that we had read, it basically extended an invitation to anybody who is like like the process of um, the Bardo Thodol. One of the first things that they mentioned was if you cannot find a guru or somebody who is well versed in, or is enlightened, then the next step would be somebody close. And it has like that extending the invitation to, and like the last resort is, somebody who can just read, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's all encompassing and it's inviting. And that's really cool that it's
Even
just,
and you'd have to remember because this would have been, even though this is technically a found text, Buddhism is
mhm,
inherently still an oral tradition, so this would have been
yeah,
something that should have been memorized and recited. So even it's just someone you can talk to, right? It's
yeah,
literally just like anyone you can have that communication with, and like they have these words. And I think that's a really powerful thing that I think we
yeah,
both, at least you and me, both subscribe to, right? Is we're literally just sitting here reading this book right now doing that, right? Is just two
yeah.
people. Like, I don't have any sage master teaching me any of these things. You don't have any sage master teaching you things. We're just two fools walking along reading a book.
We're just trying to learn here.
I
Go on
just
the spiritual journey. Go
yeah,
on the descent.
exactly. I just wanted to read a book with a friend, right? Keep it nice and simple.
Plot twist, it's not.
Oh God, no! Wait, why would we do anything simple?
Never a day in our lives.
No, apparently isn't the whole point of all this though? Isn't it supposed to
Yeah.
be? I guess I don't know. I don't know which school of Buddhism I subscribe to in that concept. Where is it supposed to be simple and we're supposed to just be able to reach enlightenment in just one specific moment, or if it's some like process that takes a long time and just taking it step by step journey, right?
Right.
So I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
like how in Zen Buddhism you can get whacked with a stick and that's supposed to make you enlightened though. So
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm sorry, but any kind of like physical, negative, receiving any kind of negative physical like abuse basically is not gonna make me want to continue to pursue like an
now that's
enlightenment, right?
actually an
Like,
interesting question I have for you. So
okay.
is like would be like okay if I told you that like I could you're can get enlightened, all you need to do is you need to meditate underneath this like which is I think it was a Bodhi tree originally or something like that. But I'm going to say a fig tree because I like fig trees better for the my personal representation. Let's say
Yeah.
you go meditate underneath this fig tree for like straight up 3 days, but you have to sit completely in full Lotus Sutra the entire in Lotus position the entire time, and you can't move an inch, and you have to do the same
Mhm.
constant breath work the entire time. Now you are obviously going to go through a physical torture to do that for those 3 days like that.
And mental anguish.
Yeah, would you do that?
I don't know if I could. I think I think I would like to get to a point where I would be open and like willing to try that, right? Because I think meditation and breath work are very much so tied into your body and how your body reacts to like every day, especially anxiety. But as somebody who has like a very anxious mind, it's like the idea of sitting down for longer than an hour and not being able to move. I like that kind of gives me
It
like a
sucks.
little bit of
Yeah.
anxiety because it's like, what if I need to? My first thought is, what if I have to go to the bathroom? Like, am I just supposed to soil myself right there, or can I raise my hands and go behind the tree, or is it just like you kind of ignore your bodily needs, right? Like that's my first thought.
I was told when I was meditating um, in an outside, right? To let the mosquito just bite me.
Oh gosh. Like I understand the why. I get that, like,
So I honestly
it's
don't
such a
know about the
challenge.
because obviously during our meditation retreat that we did and everything, that experience, that we could go use the restroom and we just had to keep silent in the experience, right?
Right.
So I don't know, but like that's such a weird, that's in the thought experiment of the question of sitting underneath the tree though. Like what would you do in that situation where it's just like I have to relieve myself? You don't get up and go, do you? Just, I don't know.
Right? Like, do
It
you
all
have like a
comes
little hole dug underneath where you're sitting, and then you just like let go? Like,
I think the argument is maybe you'd be at a place where you'd fast and you wouldn't have to, and you wouldn't produce.
yeah.
I guess would be the like you prepare yourself. I don't.
Like, is there a preparation? Because I feel like if that's something that you're
It's our
going
thought
to like,
experiment, so
oh my god, I know. Now I'm like, okay, is this what we do? Like in a month or two? Like we just try to do this?
find a nice tree and just sit there for
Yeah,
three
just
instead
sit
of
there.
going and actually doing the entire move. We just sit
Yeah.
underneath a tree.
Yeah, I'm just gonna go sit in the middle of a park and like let people walk past me.
I don't know. No, I don't know. It's because
Could you
that's
do
like
it?
that's the question though. Like, and that's why ultimately, like Zen, at least that in some form of Zen Buddhism, then other form of Buddhism, they would like whack people with sticks, right? And because of that, that's
Yeah.
the question. Like, spark that enlightenment and everything like that. So that is
Yeah.
those are the thought experiments gone into actuality, right? So
Right.
I don't know where I draw that line on that question. I know that I don't think it would. I don't think that like any form of enlightenment that I understand doesn't come from any intentional, like you said, physical
Like
suffering.
negative connotation. Yeah. Like
Yeah.
your physical well being is just as important as your spiritual and your mental. And I think that might be one thing where it's like, I mean, that's something that you see throughout history, right? Is if the best way to be better is to physically challenge yourself. And, for a Buddha practice, that might be whacking somebody with a stick because, like, they twitch their arm or, like, they do something when they're supposed to be meditating and not moving. And so, like, you know, obviously that may still be practiced today. I don't know how it's practiced today. I don't know if there's any, like, kind of adjusting to that, or if it's just the same kind of practice that has been around for like 3,000 years, or if they're kind of like, hey, you know what? We've learned that negative physical connotation like is not really well associated or well perceived when you're trying to go through this very intense, deep, emotional, spiritual journey.
No, and I don't know of any like active schools and
Yeah.
Buddhism schools that still whack it with sticks. I'm sure that there is some schools that still do it, just as like there's still forms of Christians that still self-flagellate, right?
Right.
So when it comes to religion and things like that, there's just I think that I understand like the ultimate Buddha. Another argument you can have with that is like pain is just an experience of the body, right? And it is something
Yeah.
that is just an action or actually it's a reaction, right?
Right.
So it is something that should not be perceived as neither good or bad, but just as that independent action
Right.
and reaction, right? But I still don't think that we are still fundamentally squishy animal meat bags, and pain is
Yeah.
still a fundamental reaction that is of a negative connotation like that when it comes to at least that kind of physical abuse or like suffering.
Right.
That I don't think that's what it's going to lead to enlightenment, when the goal of enlightenment isn't to end suffering.
Yeah. No,
I still think that the
I
act of
agree.
suffering is ultimately what is enlightenment, right? Because the whole point, I don't know, it's a non-duality thing, I guess. These are literally theological questions at this point.
They are indeed, because it's so broad, like it that in and of itself, you know, putting yourself through kind of like a physical suffering is, like we were talking about, touching on, like it's, there in Christianity, it's there in Catholicism, it's here with like Buddha waves, and it's just an ever present theme that you see that, oh, if you put yourself through this suffering, oh, Cookie,
We have a little, like, everyone's gonna say hi.
hi, Cookie.
Cookie. Oh,
She's
well,
got a
gotta make
lot to
her an
say.
appearance on the podcast.
Yeah, she is. She says, I'm the new special guest. Move over, Sam.
Move over. This is the cookie show now.
Yeah.
We need to get some cream then for that. Well, I guess you had your oat milk.
Yeah. Got my oat milk. It's fine. All right, come on, Cookie. Let's go.
I think it's my turn to take over now, so we
It
can finish this little
is.
section up here. So,
Yeah.
okay, so picking up for where you said, I'll finish. I'll read your last line there. So the
Cool.
last line you read was, "I must rouse my body, speech, and mind to the practice of virtue." Now, I take refuge from now until enlightenment in the Buddha, the sacred teachings, and the Supreme Assembly, through the merit of practicing generosity and other perfections. May I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all living beings. May I become a spiritual teacher, able to guide infinite sentient beings, as many as there are, without exception. Then, this is in parentheses, then one should meditate on the four immeasurable aspirations as follows. May all sentient beings be endowed with happiness. May they be separated from suffering and its cause. May they be endowed with joy, free from suffering, and may they abide in equanimity, free from attachment or aversion.
Hmm. You know, I know it's not meant to feel aggressive, but like,
It's meant with. I get what you're talking about when you said force. I
right?
understand that very much because of how it's punctuated, especially, and where it draws the attention, and that like literally the punctuation of it, right?
Yeah.
And that and obviously, me with no rhythm, butchering and how it's supposed to be said, and of course, it's not even supposed to be said in English. It's supposed to be said in, you know, uh, I'm sure Sanskrit,
Yeah.
or I should probably actually look that up at some point what this was originally written in. Um, but I really get that. Like it's like a force of good though. It's like, may all
Right.
sentient beings be endowed with happiness. May they be separated from suffering and the joy it causes. Yeah, it's like that, like unhinged toxic positivity,
Yes.
right?
It's like Oprah on her show. You get a car. You get a car. You get a
God
car.
damn it, everyone's gonna be happy.
Everyone's gonna be force happy, but like right here where it says in the Buddha, the sacred teachings and Supreme Assembly, like I don't know what it is about Supreme Assembly, but like that made me think of this sci-fi book series by Ian M. Banks that I read like probably 5, 6 years ago, and like I'm sure they probably use the phrase like Supreme Assembly in there because like they create these vehicles called general systems vehicles, and they're supposed to like help make alien life and human life a little bit easier so that the humans or the aliens can then themselves reach enlightenment or whatever is a fulfilling life to that person. And so when I think of Supreme Assembly, I think of a robotic spaceship that is floating through the cosmos, trying to
Hmm.
seek out and better life throughout the cosmos.
Interesting. I believe the Supreme Assembly, to my knowledge, is just basically everyone in the Dharma, like who's just like heard of the like just heard the Buddha teachings. So there's
Right.
quite literally cosmic beings, like the cosmic beings, right? And the cosmic Buddhas out there would be like, with me, hey, who knows? Maybe there's a cosmic Buddha out there flying around in a spaceship out there, just vibing around like that.
Yeah. Just bopping through like, hey planet, how you doing? You guys good? All right, we're going to the next one.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's just go from which dream walk through the dimensions and make some lotuses bloom along the way.
Oh my gosh, could you imagine?
Um, no, I definitely think that that's definitely, and I don't know how long I'm supposed to meditate on the four immeasurable aspirations,
Yeah,
but it definitely made me feel positive.
I agree. I think it
And
is
if I'm,
overall a very positive feeling and a positive, yeah, positive step.
no, I really, and that's again what's interesting here is again it's just within the context that I know we're just, I guess I'm interested in the fact that we're supposed to be having technically be speaking this to a dead spirit, right? And starting the transition into the next realm. Um, but it's also interesting that like these are supposed to still just be the teachings that at any point should reach that moment of enlightenment, right? That's the whole
Right.
thing about all this, is that even just reading this text or at any point in theory is supposed to be able to teach it, because this is the Buddha text, or the Buddha, right? It's a part of the Buddha, right? As this is the teaching. um I really find it really interesting going back to the part and when you read,
Mhm.
and it's that from now until enlightenment is attained again. It really kind of sparked my mind again, because like that's, I really find that interesting actually, is the non-duality of, because there is not supposed to, there's only now, right? So, but is it now until enlightenment is attained? It's that acknowledgement that both are, again, that non-duality, that we're not enlightened, but we're only now and all that stuff like that. So I
Right.
don't know where exactly my mind was that. So but in that moment, that everyone should be happy and experiencing that, free from suffering, um, just now, and then reaching that enlightenment again just now, but it's still written in a way that's understood, in a way that it contains these contradictions in these texts. And
Hmm.
I think that's why it's so important that we're taking it step by step. And I don't think I can read it any more faster than really line by line, is because it's just contradiction after contradiction with that. Then my mind just like is, what did I just read?
Yeah, and they have to like process it. Like there's this oh gosh, where is it? Okay, yeah. So, may I become a spiritual teacher, able to guide infinite sentient beings, as many as there are, without exception. Like my brain, right? My westernized brain, who grew up in a Christian household, who's no longer like identifies as a Christian. But it's like in my brain, I think back to like the Christianity teachings of, be kind, be compassionate, don't cast judgment upon others. And like this statement right here, like as many as there are without exception, like that feels very judgment free. But then my brain kind of goes to, but we all tend to pass judgment in some form. So, is there kind of a form of judgment that as you're going through this, you do kind of think like, oh, I don't want to go pass it on to this person? But I guess the idea is when you are seeking enlightenment, you cast those doubts, you cast those judgments out of your brain.
Well, here I got a judgment for you to make.
Okay.
So, in going back to the four immeasurable aspirations that we're supposed to meditate on,
Mhm.
it says, "May all sentient beings be endowed," and then it also, then 2 lines later, says, "May they be endowed." Again, it's both be endowed with happiness and then endowed with joy, free from suffering. So,
Mhm.
what does endowed mean to you?
That you are endowed to me, I think means that you have, right? Like you're blessed with, you carry with you. So, like, may they be endowed with happiness. So, may they have happiness be within them, or like be them, or be a part of them. May they be endowed with joy. May they hold joy. May they have joy. May they carry joy. That's what endowed
I like
means to me. What
carried.
does it mean to you?
I like carried a lot,
Carried. Yeah.
because of what the implication of carried is.
Mhm.
Because that means it's something that they have within them, and that they're able to take from place to place with it, and
Right.
that it is almost, it becomes a part of their agency. And I like that a lot. I like that a lot. That be essentially with, that they're being carried. Carried with is, I like how you described it with carried with a lot. Because endowed to me means, like you said, almost like ordained. I like how you, I like that
Ooh,
word
ordained.
ordained was really
Yeah.
good.
Mhm.
And I like that it's not saying that they're entitled it from anything or anyone. It's just, may
Yeah.
they be. It's just they should. I like that. I
Mhm.
think that comes back to that force of it. That you're talking about.
Right.
Like, it's just speaking with that authority of like, no, this is just what it is. These are
Yeah.
beings. They should be endowed with happiness.
Yeah. And may
They
they
should
abide in
be.
equanimity, free
Yeah,
of
exactly.
attachment or aversion.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Right. They should be. I like that a lot. So I really enjoy carried with. I think that my brain likes ordained as just the initial rain through, but like
Mhm.
that carried with implication and the imagery of that, I think really is, and I think that is because ultimately, again, as my little anarchist spirit at heart loves that idea that no, there is no authority that gives, anyone else their happiness. You just have your being. And I don't
Yeah.
know if that's, and I don't know if that's what the text is supposed to read, but that's what I'm taking from it. Is
Mhm.
that I don't give a fuck if you're a lotus flower. I don't give a fuck if you're a little worm that scares me because of my parasite fears, or I don't care if you're a beautiful human being with amazing colors. I don't give a fuck. You're a being. You're endowed with happiness.
Yeah, you deserve happiness. And it goes back to, oh my god, I just lost my train of thought. Oh, kicking myself here. Well, well, there that thought went. I was really excited because I was like, yes. Oh, I remembered. Okay. It goes back to that compassion, right? Like, I feel like in order to be able to carry out, these meditations and aspirations, you have to be a compassionate person, right? So, in order to show yourself compassion, but also wish these things not only on yourself, but on others, on all living things. And that doesn't just apply to humanity, like you're saying, it applies to like the worm scooting across the floor, the crow that's going to eat it, or, this tree that's sprouting up, or this mushroom that's growing under the shade of a tree, or a squirrel scampering through, right? Like it's all connected, and you have to like have that level of compassion in order to just constantly wish happiness, wish that people are separated from suffering, or like all living things are separated from suffering and what it causes, and that the living beings or living things just might be living with joy, carried with joy, free from suffering, free from attachment or aversion, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. So it's so interesting, and I think that's like the whole point of like why humans, or at least in a lot of teachings, are so different and capable of enlightenment, is because how does a shrew get free of that suffering? How does that
Right.
mushroom? How does that worm? How does that crow? How does that
Right.
that especially with what we're the current environmental catastrophe that's going on, right? Which we don't, I guess it wasn't a real crisis when this text was found.
Yeah.
It was a little different back then. Um,
Too many human
I don't
beings.
know. It's such an because all beings, right? And there are
Yeah.
still, and with we're at 8 billion humans, how many fucking ants are there alone? There's enough. There's as many ants as there is the biomass of like all mammals or some shit like that, right? Or just
Like,
what is
kids.
that fact? What a traveler, if you know what that individual fact is, please correct me and please help me because I just know bats, ants have an insane amount of biomass. Um, yeah, it's so many things.
It is, and it's really funny that you brought up ants because Nick has ants, like little pet ants, right? Like,
Oh, no shit.
yes, he does. They're hibernating right now in our
Oh,
little Harry Potter
adorable.
closet in the back of the house. I'll have to
Oh,
send
I
you a
love that.
picture. It's
Oh, I
very
know.
fascinating.
Yeah, you have to
Uh,
keep little critters like that at the right temperature.
exactly. But for me, ants cause such an aversion because, like I just have this innate irrational fear of bugs in, on, or around my body. So when Nick said, I want ants, and somebody who I used to work with, he was the cook at the center that I worked at. He's very much so like the bug guy. Like he has bees. He goes out and he finds queen ants, and that's what he did. Was he found a bunch of queen ants, brought them to me in a little plastic paper container, and said, "Here you go for Nick." And I went, "Oh, I have to bring this home with me." And it was very much so like I felt like I was channeling like I can't have an aversion to this as I carry this paper container filled with carpenter ants on a bus from downtown Seattle for a 45-minute bus ride home. And like, I had to stop myself from like, okay, they're not going to break through, they're not going to eat through, they're not going to consume my body. But it was like showing
Literally work
myself.
yourself through the process.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'd work myself through the process and like show myself the compassion, acknowledge, yes, I have this weird irrational fear. No, they're not going to eat through this cup. Yes, this is going to bring my partner joy. And like that ultimately, like that joy that I knew it would bring him is what like carried me through the anxiety of bringing home these ants and continuing to have them live in my house.
I mean, what a beautiful little story right there. And now you got ants because of it. What even a
Yeah,
win-win right there. But it's very
exactly.
interesting. I really do think that like you touched on something that's a fun concept, like in general, right? Like the act of being selfless, right, and doing
Mm-hmm.
something for those you care, especially those you care about, right? Even it's
Yeah,
even more so with those you care about, those affirmations and those love languages, right?
right.
Really can help you grow and like do things and like challenge yourself to get outside that box, right? We grow for our partners and we grow and change for who we are, for them, and try to get outside that comfort zone, because there is no way in hell's bells, based off of your description, that you would have gotten ants on your own.
Mm-mm.
And so it's really exciting for you to like you said, like that you used this like you said, compassion and love to like get through this uh now you're not saying you're best friends with ants, all ants in the world now, or anything like that, but like this at least like actual fear and phobia that you had with it and everything like that, and this anxiety that you had with it, and you're able to actually like grow and like find some peace with it in some ways with it. So like
Right.
it's very like much that tool of like again you looking to through selfless actions through love and kindness and compassion. um I think is very much exactly like what we're talking about with that pathway towards ultimately being like with like you said a bodhisattva, as
Right.
the teachings are trying to get through too.
And it's back to that little phrase of may they all be separated from suffering and its causes, right? Like, so I guess that, like, thinking back on that whole experience, that's exactly what it was. It was separating my suffering from the cause and just kind of embracing it, and like, I don't know. I guess like that's just the way that I can connect to these, which is always
I like
fun,
that, the
right?
separation of suffering from the cause. I like that. I don't know, I
Yeah.
don't have anything empirical or profane to add to that, but I just like that. That was a good. I like that. That was a good one.
I love finding these like synchronicities and like being able to connect like what happens in our lives to what we read, and they're vastly different, right? Because
Yeah.
we all experience life in a very different way, different lights, different views, different experiences, different emotions.
Well, we're humans, right? When we see
Yeah.
patterns to a fault, right? So,
Yes.
I mean, like that's what we do, right? So it's very like we can either see patterns to a fault, and we can see that in a negative context, and literally go into a way and go down whatever negative spiral that is, or we can use it in a positive light and use it as a tool and a resource to like actually like take those positive affirmations and tools, use and grow, and try to like pay attention and listen to are both what our brain's trying to tell us because of these patterns and what the world's trying to tell us and how we interact with it.
Yeah, exactly. And for for me, when I go into those kind of places, I try to tell myself just be better. But like,
Yeah,
yeah, like,
I see that. Oh, fucking that. Be better. Yeah, it is
yeah,
like why don't we just be better? We deserve better, so we should be better.
yes, exactly. And it's like, you can do better. I can do
Yeah.
better when I interact with something,
Hmm.
like with somebody or with something, or think about something, like for myself, be better to myself, be better in, being intentional. Like, that's one thing that I'm also learning how to do, is just to be a little bit more intentional with my
Hmm.
presence, with my happiness, with my existence, and with how I interact with not only myself, but those around me and like the things around me. And it just, it kind of comes down to, may all sentient beings be endowed with happiness. And oh, hi Bean. Bean
Yeah,
is
we got a
now
little
in the
beanie babies
camera
hanging.
traveler. She is saying hello. It kind of comes down to, like we were talking about earlier, like we all deserve to be happy, we all deserve happiness, and it's kind of about how we find that happiness.
Well, and as like you said, may all beings, right? And as I
Yeah.
just was making a note in here, further in is as many as there are without exception, right?
Yeah.
So right above that, when we get into the final meditation part of right, that as it gets into that
Hmm.
last little paragraph of the reading. May I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all living beings, right? As you were talking about, may I become a spiritual teacher able to guide the infinite sentient beings, right? As many as there are without acceptation, right? The whole point is it doesn't matter what life or anything or what incarnation or what being it is. Where again, it's that everyone's supposed to be going through this and we're supposed to be doing this together in this I guess grand vehicle, I guess would be the word of the day for it, right?
Yeah.
um and I think that and for my like the synchronicity for me and all that is like, so I'm really big into the concept of all is one and one is all, right? The old alchemist philosophy, right?
Right.
And I do believe fundamentally that the one can change the all and the all changes the one, right? I
Yeah.
believe it's an interconnected relationship, whether it's the universe. I think that ultimately my belief on it is that we're all just the universe experiencing itself as human for a little bit, right?
Yeah.
um and so I think that like it's like that's the whole point of like that little bit of teaching right there, right? Is may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all living beings, because I do believe that if I'm able to even just simply be on that path towards being a bodhisattva like we're talking about here, and just trying to act with compassion and kindness in all my actions and that intention like you
Hmm.
were saying right there, for all beings, then hopefully my little actions of the one right there is affecting the all, right? And then so then may I
Exactly.
become a teacher, not just for myself, but and able to guide other people, and able to act with the intention and compassion, not trying to give you some esoteric knowledge. What
Yeah.
esoteric knowledge is there to give in the sense? I'm just trying to be a decent person and try to treat you with love and compassion, right?
Yeah.
There's not trying to do anything fancy with it, and there shouldn't be anything fancy with it, and there shouldn't be. And even people who and this is how I deal with. So this is something I really struggle in my spirituality, right?
Hmm.
Is how do I do as many as there are without exception, including people like Hitler, including people like Andrew Tate, including people like pedophiles, including people like who are actively committing war crimes, including all these different people.
Yeah.
Um, the only answer I've been able to get through that my personal I've heard a lot of different answers from a lot of different religious teachers, because I've been through a couple different sermons, and this is a common question, right? Is how do you love people
Yeah.
who do this hurt? And I don't know if I've heard any exact one that I really resonated with, and I don't know if this is my final answer on this, or at least even my current polished version of an answer. But the way I've really figured it out is because at one point that person was still just a child,
Yeah.
right? At some point, regardless of what monsters they ended up growing into, and no matter how much agency they took away and hurt, at
Hmm.
some point they were just a child,
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
there was causes and conditions. Sure, there might have been some kind of medical reason and some kind of
Yeah.
genetic reason why this person might have been predisposition to some of these tendencies, whether it be some kind of narcissism or some
Yeah.
kind of uh unchecked any of the any unhealth reason, mental health reason, right, that could have led to some of these behaviors, or any of the causes conditions of an abusive society that has just created generational trauma, right?
Yeah.
So like I can understand that at one point those people were just children who were born into this world that inherently creates this systematic generational trauma, and I can give love towards that,
Yes.
right? I can give compassion towards that. I can give my love and compassion, setting my intention of protecting the world from people who do actively take away agency and harm from people like that in a very harmful way. But at the same time, I can love and recognize that I can help make the world and make it a better place by wishing the end of that system and still treating those people with that love and compassion like that, right? I can
Right.
separate those two. It's having that kind of two truths at the same time thing, right? I can
Right.
understand that these people are horrific, but I understand that they came from this place and that we need to still treat them with love and compassion, but they can't be exist in this society, in this place, like that. All these very complex things that I don't have the answers to, like I said, but
Right.
I can, at least for me, like that's a very hard thing for me, that always my Uzumaki and my mental spiral stops with, right? Is, well, as many as there are without exception, well, there's a lot of fucking pieces of shit in there, and like, and my
Too
worst
many.
mental spirals, I think I'm that worst piece of shit, right? So do I deserve
Yep.
all that stuff and everything like that? So, well, no,
Yeah.
but at least I love the causes and conditions of that society deserve love to be able to promote love and happiness and kindness, and eventually the conditions that promote enlightenment, right? Not
Right.
ones that cause active heart and hurt for a child or some kind of being that wasn't able to get the help they needed, and
Yes.
instead had to react in those ways that caused more hurt, right?
Right.
So whether it be, like I said, from health reasons, mental or physical, or just because of being in whatever social factors or
Environmental, social.
whatever it could have been in life, right? So it's really, I just go back to the causes and conditions on that one. I think that, sorry for that tangent right there, but that's a big powerful one in my head right there,
No, I really appreciate that you went on that tangent because, like, what immediately goes to my brain is the question that, you just hear asked throughout media, throughout your peers, whether it's in school or just with like people you know. And it's the question that is, if you could go back in time and go basically kill baby Hitler,
Yeah, the baby
knowing all
Hitler,
that
but
you
yeah.
know, would you do it? Right? Like that's the question that goes through my brain, and it's exactly like you said. It's like they, allowing yourself to show love and compassion to the child that they once were. And my brain, of course, immediately goes, well, like, okay, well, do I have the tools to create a different like environment for this child to grow into, so maybe they don't become this horrible human
Mm-hmm.
being? But it's like, you know, it kind of also it absolutely does play into the people who are in your life. Like, if there's a person in your life that you struggle with connecting with, but they're in your life for a certain reason, and you have to show love and compassion to that person. How do you do that? Do you just remind yourself that yes, they also used to be a person, or like used to be a child, and can you show that person love and compassion while through showing that person's like inner child love and compassion? Like, how do you navigate that? And that's absolutely something that I'm actually currently very much so struggling with. And you know it's not an easy thing to process and to go through. So I
I
appreciate.
don't have an answer in my heart. I don't.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's something I
Nope.
struggle with, like you said. Yeah, no, I very much. I have ideas, like I said, I want to work for. And I'm trying to work through, like I said, like in your process, how you're like, it's like an active thought, right? This is still an
Yeah.
active thought in my like active journey, right? Like
Right.
I don't have this answer,
Nope.
um, and I don't know if I will,
Yeah.
because like I don't know, because that's like asking my heart to be free of resentment.
Right.
And like I understand that, like especially because of like my AA teachings, right, going back to my when I was in Alcoholics Anonymous exclusively, um you're not supposed to hold any resentments. I'm a human, I still hold hatred in my heart. I
Yeah.
do my best to like live in compassion, but there's some people who really irk me in a lot of wrong ways, and I hold on to that hurt. And I've done a lot of ways to like heal and let go of a lot of that stuff, but
We're not perfect.
I'm not perfect.
Yeah.
It happens, it
Yeah.
just happens, right? So
We're human
um
beings.
yeah, so I don't, it's scary, dude, because
It is.
like, because it's ultimately asking myself, do I think I am that monster, right? In my
Right.
how I turn, because I always turn it back on myself. That's what mine does. I
Me
haven't
too.
yet to encounter anyone meaner to me than myself.
Yep.
um
I
and
hear that.
um because ultimately when it says as many as there are without exception, I still say without exception except me, right?
Yeah. Yep.
That's always the exception. That's why I think I'm comfortable saying I'm on a bodhisattva sound. I'm not actually trying to reach enlightenment, is because no, I want all other beings instead of myself first, right?
Yeah.
It's that, that whole like, there is that, it's that Uzumaki spiral of it. Is that enough and that worth it and that all that stuff, right? But
Hmm.
I'm not that monster. I'm
No.
just some dude, and I'm still some being that's worthy of love and compassion. And it's not just some nihilistic wormhole. There's the Heart Sutra for a reason, and it is
Hmm.
love and compassion, and that's what I think a lot of this book has done really well. And I think that's why it's so powerful that you've related to it so much so far. Is continuously coming back to the compassion element, is because I am a being,
Yeah.
I am worthy of compassion and love. I'm worthy of being on a path to being a bodhisattva and eventually reading the ultimate enlightenment, and whatever that looks like, and whatever candlelight journey that is. And I'm worthy of like having these different teachers and everything like that come across this line. I'm worthy of having you be this teacher with me in this moment, like the book talks about, right? Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, that's like, I think so. It's like I really like that this book has this, uh so far at least, this translation and these readings are just, again, this very, again, that complex hard reality of like, not at least that what we're taking from of it and really extrapolating from it, this hard reality of like, no, it is just everyone, and it is just
Hmm.
everyone that deserves love and compassion. It's that
And
simple. We can make it
including
complex in the
yourself.
spiral. Yeah, exactly, including ourselves. Yes, yes, sorry, exactly, including ourselves, right? And we should say that too.
Yes.
It is that simple. It's not these extrapolations that we're making it out to be. It is just, no, all beings love and simple.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's part of this journey is also kind of, for me, and I'm sure, maybe for you, is learning how to show ourselves compassion, right? It's learning to show ourselves compassion in our darkest and in our weakest moments, because we know inherently we are not bad people, right? Our intentions are genuine, our intentions are there. We're learning how to show that to ourselves.
I have a fun point with that. I think that you're going to love. I think that
Ooh,
one of the most successful ways I've done that is through my accountability. Is
yes.
by being able to, in those moments where I don't want to or I get scared, whether it be through work or whatever personal stuff, is still showing up, and because then I can be like, I did that, and that I there's that reinforcement that I give myself mentally, and that little bit of like a feedback loop right with it. So I
Yeah,
think that you touched on something right there very much, is like, that is like showing yourself that compassion, like in those whatever expression that is. And for me individually, it's like, that's why I take my accountability so seriously like that. I understand like whatever it might be, it's like, at least I'm showing up and at least fucking trying, right?
right.
So like for me, it's like whatever that action is that, like you were saying right there, and that for that expression right there, oh,
Mhm.
that was I like that. I like that a lot of you.
Oh my gosh, good, good, good. I love this. Oh, so good. Oh man. Yeah.
Also, I like that it unironically uses the word quagmire.
Me too. Me too. Because of course I immediately go to like Family Guy, right? Like that's
Yeah,
that
I
when
do.
I
I
hear
do
when I
too.
see
Yeah, that's what I
Quagmire,
do. Yeah, I understand
that's what
that a
I see.
quagmire is an actual thing and it is definitely not in that in this situation.
Yep, correct.
But I
I
do,
acknowledge
I
that.
do that it is unironically and accurately using the word quagmire.
It is, and it's fun because I don't think I've seen it accurately used.
Okay, so what's your favorite word of all time to use accurately? I actually know mine.
Oh, that's a tough one. Okay, I want to hear yours, and then I'll kind of like ruminate on that.
Zeitgeist.
Zeitgeist.
Yes,
Ooh,
I love it when because it's 100% because when I was 16-year-old stoner, I watched on Netflix Zeitgeist and thought I was the most woke person and now on the spiritual journey because I watched this Netflix journey that was full of a bunch of conspiracies and like half truths, and then like so I'm like, hey, maybe, and then like so, but yeah, ultimately it got me into a place now where I can be like, oh, let's learn about this in a healthy way, let's learn about this accurately and stuff like that, right? But like
I
it's so,
love that.
I always love the word zeitgeist because it always had this crazy like, oh, it's this mystic, esoteric. Alex Jones is going to show me the way, word meaning, and everything like that. And so, like, anytime like I can actually correctly still use the word zeitgeist because it's a weird word. It's it's zeit, it's a geist. It's not a normal word, and it rolls. It's
It's
zesty, it's
not.
spicy. It's got the Z. It's got the zest in it, right? So, and when I can accurately use that in a word in a sentence, or I'm like that's top of the hat. I just did it. Give me my fucking Pulitzer Prize.
I love that. I love that. That is your favorite go-to word to use. Oh my gosh. I don't know. Like I'm gonna have to think about this. Like
Take your time.
really
You don't
think
have to
about
give an
it.
answer right now, but that's I have that. That's an open question for
Yeah.
you. Okay.
Okay, I love that. I'm gonna think about that during the week, and if I think about it, I'll either text it to you or I'll wait until we record next.
Oh, we'll see if I remember. So this is going to be a wonderful surprise when I eventually decide
Yeah,
because I know you'll remember, and I'll be like, and then I'll remember as soon as you notify me of it. So,
I'll just like text you a singular word, and you'll be like, "Sam, I don't understand." Oh,
and it'll be like, oh, happy moment.
yeah, exactly. Oh, I'm writing it down
Okay.
so I don't forget.
So as we begin to wrap down here today, is there anything else that from the reading you want to talk about, or any over the other reflections you have from this about page we read or so?
I back to the synchronicities, right? Like I feel like I'm just a constant broken record saying synchronicity. Like that might be my hyperfixation word right now, type with, synchronicities. But I'm really glad that I read my poem Just Breathe before we went into this because that poem in and of itself shows us how to be compassionate to ourselves. And the journey
Mm.
that we just went on is about showing compassion to ourselves and like
Mm-hmm.
living beings. And I think
Yeah.
that just, really went hand in hand and very well together, unintentionally.
Yeah.
But, I hope that Traveler and Utah as well kind of hold those words near and dear to your heart and soul this week and into the
Oh.
future.
Oh. Well, first and foremost, may I remind everyone here that they were very beautiful words, and I thank you very much for being able to open up this episode with us, and it was a true blessing. Um, I think my final thought on
Mm-hmm.
this was I think my word of the day, Sesame's trial was anxiety,
Mm-hmm.
for a lot of different reasons. And I think that the synchronicity, or just like the lining up is, yeah, or the synchronicity as you call it, right, of that being my word of the day essentially, and then you coming in with a poem of focusing on breath, and the restorativeness of that and the connectedness, and really I say dependency in a healthy way of
Mm-hmm.
breath, right? And what that means, and especially for me, and what that means for dealing with my depression, my anxiety, and those intrusive thoughts, right? It's such an alive thing. So I'm like, I hear that coming from it. I'm like, fuck, okay, let's get into this reading. Let's take this breath. Let's get into this, right? Let's that reset, refresh. Let's go. Let's deal
Mm-hmm.
with it, right? So it's a very powerful start for me right there. And then I get into this thing. It's very much that like, okay, I'm dealing with this anxiety, in which my anxiety is all almost all stemmed for me is that like that worthless, and that, like that fear, right? So it's like no. Don't care who you are. You deserve compassion and love without a mean. So, like, to be able to have that be so alive for me today, and to be able to take that reading from the reading today, really was my synchronicity, as I would say, in our chosen language here. And I really, it was good. It was good, and I
What?
really, 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 really appreciate. I mean, first of all, I'm very selfishly aware, very happy that now we essentially have like 3 years worth of content at the rate we're reading this.
Honestly, yes,
So we are good to go. If
we
this,
are.
so don't worry, traveler, you're not good unless the society collapses around us. We're going to be on this journey for a minute. um,
I just had this because I've been watching The Last of Us. I had this like
100%, yeah.
zombie apocalypse, and you and I are like recording this podcast.
Okay, so I literally the bombs are dropping. I have a clicker and three morphs coming my way, but we're on page 18, y'all. Page 18.
Better
um,
with that compassion.
exactly. Oh my, oh my. Um, so but I'm genuinely like very happy about that. Like I'm very happy that like I have this like now like this again this continued expression that I have something to rely on for at least a little bit. I'm very happy to have a part of this chat. Like I said, I like to read a book at a time in this context, and I'm very happy to for this to be that book in that sense.
Likewise.
I really, like I said, like that in every episode we have done so far. It's one that's been very different, and we've been able to connect for it in every way, in very different ways. Like I said, with my anxiety today so far, to be able to connect with both, like I said, not even just the text, but your poem as well, like that. Fucking dope. And thank you, Traveler, for joining us here on that. As always, fuck, dude. Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Samantha, so much for being here and joining me in this space, and thank you again so much more for a much more personal thing. I appreciate all the love and acceptance that you have continued to bring into this podcast and in this world, and you are just a wonderful light and traveler. In case no one's told you today, you're a pretty cool person. And you're worried just as much as me and this wonderful person here are also trying to figure out like just what exactly that means in this reality. And when we don't have those answers exactly always in our heart or in our eyes or in our mind, whether we can't always see what it looks like, it doesn't matter. We're still worthy of compassion. We're still a person. We're still worthy of practicing generosity for each other and for the sake of all living beings, right? You don't have to have some fancy guru. You don't have to have some crazy spiritual teacher. You don't have to subscribe to some right-wing subscription service to get swole and become an alpha male. You just need another person to talk to. And maybe that's all enough, and we can get fucking on this way to enlightenment. And all that is really enough is we're just worth it. Just because of that enough. Maybe we're enough just because we are just a being in this reality. And that's all it needs to take. And maybe that we are worthy of this fucking love and compassion overall. And for the love of God, people, just don't try your best to be nice. Try your best to be kind because we are worth it. And God damn it, we can be better.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better myself. Traveler, tall, myself, you are worthy.